another episode of Quran Lessons for the Infidel. With me, as always, is Bogi. Today we're doing Surah 19, which is Maryam or Mary, referring to the Madonna. Bogi, what do you got for us?
Oh, a lot of things, as usual. One of the points is this is a very interesting surah as it goes, partly because it's one of the very few places where a woman is actually mentioned by name, although that is no exception because Mary happens to be the only woman, I think, that is mentioned by name in the Bible either. Well, I could be wrong there.
There's a couple more.
There's a couple more.
Yeah, at least.
Okay. So
there's actually a handful that's coming to me. Yeah. So Hagar as Sarah and Eve and
yes.
Yeah.
Hagar is also mentioned. Sarah, Eve. Yeah. Those would be in the Quran too.
Good.
But like I was thinking, the whole surah for them is kind of like, well, we will see. So this is one of the nicer surahs in the Quran. Its language is very nice and soft, especially in the places where it's not talking about hellfire and whatnot.
There are places in the Quran that are not talking about hellfire?
No, there aren't. For the sake of the dereference, this is one of my favorite surahs. I usually end up in tears when I read it every time.
Really?
Even as an atheist, yes. So that just to illustrate, this surah has some pretty serious language, and we'll discuss that part when we get there, particularly the speech that Jesus gives in the first person about himself is kind of eerie, because you can't say that as a, like when you say those things, you can't say them as a not God human being, given the reference that I will be blessed when I would be born, right? But no, he says, I'll be blessed when I'm born. So he speaks that part in the first person, present tense. And that frazzles a lot of people.
Who's saying that he's going to be born?
Jesus, the newborn Jesus.
Okay. I don't remember that. I read this thing and I don't remember seeing it. Okay, well, lead the way.
So this is likely the most beautiful chapters of the Quran, linguistically packed and emotionally charged with interesting details. Usually I am driven to tears when I read this one. Those are my notes.
Wow.
So excuse me. I may not be able to hold them back this time either. I have tissue on the ready, and I incorporated a link to the Wikipedia of Mary, the mother of Jesus. A lot of this stuff that you will find in this surah is in the infancy books of the Bible, and they did not make the canon. So a lot of the stuff that is in this chapter is not in the canonized Bible, but thanks to recent archaeological research, we found a lot of these books buried in the deserts of Sinai and buried in the deserts of Egypt, and some of them even in the Saudi Arabian northern deserts. They were buried in pots. They were buried in wells. And we found them, including the Book of Mary, which a lot of people don't think ever existed, and the Book of Judas. which are recent additions to the Bible conglomerate that were not canonized and that were ordered destroyed. And obviously they made it all the way to the hands of Muhammad, because this thing, this is where he would find this kind of thing in detail, especially the infancy stuff, because that was absolutely cut out of the canon early on, from the First Nicene Council. They said, no, we don't do that, right? But here, these books persevered. It's deep desert. The hands of the Roman Empire doesn't reach there, so they didn't get burned. Also, this surah has 3 abrogations, and we will come to that later as they happen. They're all unfortunate ones. My first note is 19:1.
19:1. Okay, starting at the very beginning.
Yes.
Let me see. I'm on 7 here. Okay, so Kaf, Ha, Ya, Ain, Sad, the letters.
Precisely. Thank you. Your Arabic is improving already. This is how it's supposed to be read: disjointed letter names, and that's it. It does not constitute a word. Almost the usual set of a few disjointed letters that we are met before, we've used to having in the Quran, but no swearing this time. So verse number 2 is not actually a swearing verse. So that's interesting. I don't know if it means anything or not, probably doesn't, but he forgot to swear on the book or something.
I just realized something that is missing in my report. I somehow deleted verses 2 through 6.
Yes, and that's why I added them in my notes.
Okay. I
don't know why
I did that.
They are interesting as they are, but
I will have to amend that. I'm sorry, what?
So, no. I was just referencing to 2 to 6, since you started on 7. So I'm just finishing the job here. This is a mention of the mercy of your God to his slave Zechariah.
Here comes the thing that always sparks. Shut up. Shut up. Okay. And that's just going to keep happening.
So, verse number 2 in Surah 19, this is the mention of the mercy of your God to his slave Zechariah.
Mm-hmm.
Slaves, in this case, specifically means messenger. An interesting kickoff of a surah named Mary, by the way. So he starts with Zechariah in a surah that is named Mary. When he called his God secretly, so this is interesting why Zechariah called his God secretly, and we will see that later in the verses as they go on. Verse 4. He said, "Oh my God, my bones are weak, and my head is going up as in flames in gray hair." So he's getting old, obviously. And I was
Shut up! Don't ever get a Great Pyrenees. They can't help but bark like constantly.
Yes, it's important to say. This is important things to say. The dogs of my neighbor upstairs, they bark at me when I come home. And they know who I am. Like, I've been here for a while, right? And they're like, "Meow." And they're like, "Really? You're barking at me?"
Yeah, I don't mean to distract on this. It's just annoying. Yeah, I can never have a talk for 10 minutes without him going off.
Yeah.
At nothing. He just barked. Oh, I see the wall. I'll bark at it. What's
Your
wrong
dog is eloquent. Come on. That's good.
He can hear things I can't hear, so he will hear. But I just heard it. It's a dog from like 2 blocks from here, and he's going to communicate with it through our walls. That's anyway. Go ahead.
So, verse 4, I said, my bones are weak and my head is going up in white hair. And I was praying and obedient, but this is the problem I'm having, and I'm afraid of the people whom I rule upon, apparently, regarding my ancestry. And my wife is barren, so please give me a successor. So he's asking for he's asking for a heir. So that is why the session is secret. It's a doctor's visit. He's going to the gynecologist.
Okay.
So that's why he's praying in secret, because it's kind of a private matter. So inherit me and inherit the Jacobites, and to inherit me and to inherit the Jacobites, and please make him pleasing to you. That's the son, the offspring he's asking for. So on 7, the name Yahya, his name is Yahya, which is interesting, a name in its own, because it means to live, the one who lives, which would strangely translate to shall live, but I have no problems with John. Your translation is John. These names tend to change and morph between languages and times. The first of this name, he will be the first of his name, like nobody ever named their son Yahya before that, just like in the Game of Thrones.
I missed the reference.
The reference is that the Game of Thrones, the queen is the first of her name, the Dragon Queen.
Okay. Still nothing.
Well, it's just a culture. Apparently, some cultures think that if you are the first of your name, that's a bigger deal than just being called, another John somewhere else.
Okay.
Okay. Verse 11, unless you have other questions.
No.
This is the miracle that he's asked for. So God told him that, hey, yeah, sure, we're going to do that. And he's asking for a sign, for a miracle to, assure him that this is going to happen, because it's so unbelievable, right? So God told him that you will not be able to speak to your people for 3 days. That will be his miracle. And you will not be struck dumb. So you will still be at your mental faculties, but you will not be able to speak to your people for 3 days. I think that happened to you when your internet went down.
Which verse are we on now?
We are on verse 11.
Verse 11. Okay.
Well, we are on the verse 11 right now. So the translation said he signaled to his people. Your translation says he signaled.
He went out of sanctuary to his people and signaled to them.
And signaled to them. That's what the translation says. However, the Quran does not say that. He uses the word wahi, which is the same word that is how Muhammad uses to get the Quran, telepathically. So he can't talk to his people, but yet he tells them to start praying. So a little bit of an improvement on the translation. It's actually wahi is not signaling. There is a word for that in Arabic. He did not suddenly start making, sign language signs and how to talk to his people. He literally awha ilayhim. He literally talked into their minds. Okay.
All right.
That's just the linguistic, not very accurate stuff in the translation. 9:15. Unless you have something to say.
Peace was on him the day he was born, the day he died, and it will be on him the day he is raised to life again.
Yes. And this entire verse is in the third person tense. Okay? So this is God telling Muhammad that peace will be upon this guy, Yahya, the day he was born, the day he will die.
Well, the day he died, past tense.
It's all in past tense and it's all in third person.
Okay.
Okay. And
now he's talking about John the Baptist, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. And I'm going to just put that on the table and move on because the frazzlement comes later.
All right.
When Jesus says these words, it's in the first tense.
Okay.
Okay. So we are on 15, 16. A very good question. Maybe she wanted to pray in seclusion, just like Muhammad did in the first surah.
Yeah, just for those who are unable to read along, it's mentioned in the Quran the story of Mary. She withdrew from her family to a place to the east and secluded herself away. We sent our spirit to appear before her in the form of a perfected man.
It is not entirely unusual for people at that time to go and seclude in secluded places like caves and just faraway places. So that would not have been an unusual thing. It would have been unusual in the sense that it's Mary who's doing it.
Because aren't we talking like we're talking about a lone teenager, right? A girl.
Right. What is unusual, and we're talking about a young woman who decides that, nope, I'm just going to go to this secluded place and not talk to anyone there. That's unusual for a young woman even today.
Mm-hmm.
But it would have been unusual then too, even the times where this is something people did at the time. So Muhammad going to the cave for seclusion and basically to clear his mind, I'm guessing, would not have been an unusual thing to do. The first surah that we studied, which is 96 in the book order, that's the very first surah that the Quran happened, talks about this and talks about the events in the cave with Muhammad, right? The place where God orders him to read, and he says, well, I can't read, right? We move on to 17.
Okay, 17. And secluded herself away, we sent our spirit to appear before her in the form of a perfected man. Now, what does a perfected man mean?
It's a well-proportioned guy.
Okay, so gotcha. So a good-looking guy is what they're saying. But my curiosity here was that
like the picture you posted.
God sends his spirit. It's not God. It's God's spirit, and somehow God's spirit is separate from him.
It's an angel. Often God references the spirit and his spirit as an angel. So he sends an angel that ends up looking like a good-looking guy. Now, this is not the first time he does it, and this probably won't be the last time he does it. Remember Lot's story? He sent two angels to check on the people of Sodom and Gomorrah, and they look like nice guys too. And the Sodomites in Sodom were quite interested, apparently. So having the angels as shapeshifters is very useful. It's quite a reoccurring theme. So having sent an angel to her with some spirit from him. That was his message to Mary, right? So
And
that,
another thing that is implying here is that it's not the Immaculate Conception that the Christians view. God sent an angel to have sex with Mary.
yes.
Okay. So no virgin birth either.
No.
Yeah.
They did the deed right there. and the ugly part I will elucidate a bit later.
Okay.
This angel is not particularly named. Of course, you have to protect the guilty.
Okay.
1918. 1918.
That was, she said, I seek the Lord of mercy's protection against you. If you have any fear of him, do not approach.
Yes. So she relies on this visitor who looks like a handsome guy, but for her, that's just a handsome guy.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So that's why she said, no, stay away. If you fear God, stay away from him. My comment is that wouldn't work today at all. I don't think it worked back then, and we know it didn't work. So obviously he had a doing to do, and he did it. 1921.
And that one, let me see what it is. And he said, this is what your Lord said. It is easy for me. We shall make him a sign to all people, a blessing from us.
Yes, and unfortunately, the translation stops there. So this is God's will, and it's easy for him to have this will. And we will make him, that's Jesus, a miracle for the people and the mercy from us. And it cuts off here. There is more in this verse. وَكَانَ أَمْرًا مَقْضِيًّا. This was a done deal. Remember the book that everything is written in?
You're losing me.
Okay, so the predeterminism in Islam strikes again. It was predetermined that Mary gets pregnant, and she gets pregnant this way, and then Jesus is born as a result. That is predetermined in the book. So when she was protesting against it, the angel said, no, this is a done deal. It's in the books. It has to happen.
Okay.
So this is a reference to that written book about everything and everybody. And we are following.
Forgive me. What book is this? That has everything written in it.
This is the book. We can call it the book of creation, if you like,
okay.
or the book of pre-creation. Everything that everyone will ever be or do is written in it. And you simply act on these written things. So everything is predetermined down to the letter, and you're just acting it out like an automaton. This is what this part of the verse actually references.
Now, I'm a little confused as to why they take such liberties with this. As I wrote in my article, I mean, this is not the story. There's a lot of things that the Quran does this, just like liberally changes details. Like suddenly there's no Joseph, right? So I mean, even fewer prophecies does Jesus fulfill in Islam than he does in Christianity.
Yes.
Yeah, and it just seems strange to me that they would just change the story like this, and it just as if this was the original version.
And they will claim that, and they will also claim that no, the Bible is indeed used to be an authentic document, but now it has been changed and altered. So whatever is in the Bible is incorrect, and these people are.
every religion does that. I mean, like the Adventists and the Jehovah's Witnesses, and they're all saying that theirs is the original true way,
Yeah,
and
and the other that come to hell.
yeah, they're all saying that they're going back to the original way.
Yeah.
And there's no record that it was ever what they say it is.
No. It's the same story. It's not different from those. But we're finding it, and we keep finding it here too. Like when she was protesting, the angel basically told her, "No, lass, this is a done deal. We have to do it." Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, she was not quite cooperative, let's say. She didn't say yes.
But she didn't say yes to what?
To getting pregnant.
Okay, but neither did she have a choice, and I understand that there was a
No,
choice.
she had no choice according to this verse. She was not given a choice. This was a done deal. It was written in the book, and the angel just executed that will.
Now, there was some commentary written somewhere about the free will of Mary in this instance, that she had free will, but no way to make that choice. Isn't that a contradictory statement?
It's an oxymoron.
Okay.
You either have free will and kick the angel off you, or you don't, and you can't do it. Right?
Yeah.
It's free will means you can have free action as well. You just don't will things and they don't happen because what's the point? Like you can't be, for example, accounted for things that you didn't do. So if your will was short on action, then you didn't do it. Yay. So any questions?
Nope.
All right.
Not even going to touch it. Just moving on.
Okay. So we are going to 22:26.
All
And
right,
I'm globing this together. And I'm globing this together because this is a story of the birth of Jesus. So we just put it.
And so it was ordained. She conceived him. She withdrew to a distant place, and when the pains of childbirth drove her to cling to the trunk of a palm tree, she exclaimed, "I wish I had been dead and forgotten long before this."
Yes, she wished that she was dead long before this.
That's such a charming story.
Yes. In 23, so she bore him out, and then she went to a distant, remote place. Apparently that place had also a tree. فجاءها المخاض إلى جزع نخلة. So her waters broke at the stem, at the tree, at the date tree. Right. So she went to seek a distance and secluded place. And you asking the question, did women have births like this at the time? And I can say with reasonable assurance, no. Even in it would have been an affair where multiple, mostly women, would be around her and helping her out with the ordeal. So this was never a do-it-alone kind of business unless you're absolutely in a desperate place. Your village has been ransacked by robbers. You're out in the desert, and now you're going to give birth, and there you are, right? And now you're going to have to do it. It's absolutely dangerous. I don't recommend it to anyone. It's just is crazy. But she went on to do it this way because she didn't want the stigma. She still was running away from the stigma at that point. A stigma of being pregnant while not being with her, known husband.
Well, why did you just tell everybody that it was an angel from God?
Oh, that would be a stoning offense even at that time. So she would get stoned if they found out, oh, you're pregnant. Well, then, you know what? Down to the valley of Jehannam with you, and we'll throw stones at you because that's what happened those days. It happens even today. So by all means, she was alone. Obviously, it would have been a big problem if she was found pregnant like that. Maybe a stoning, well, most definitely a stoning. On verse 23, when her waters broke at the trunk of the palm tree, then she said, I wish I was long dead and forgotten. Okay, that's despair. Verse number 24, and a voice from below her. Now, this is debatable even in Islamic terms of what this voice is, what the source of this voice is. Some say, no, this is Jesus speaking right out of the womb.
Yeah, that does seem to be implied.
Yes. Others say, no, this is just the earth telling her that these are the things that are available here. So the voice from below her is not clear. Obviously, if she's standing upright, more or less clutching the tree trunk, as you described, she hears a voice from below that could be Jesus talking from her womb. Although I don't know how that would work in physics, because, womb full of liquid doesn't really work with sound, with vocal cords. But some reference this as this is the voice of the unborn Jesus talking to his mother from inside her womb, saying, do not be sad. Well, doesn't say mother, so that kind of throws a little bit of a kink into that theory.
So I missed this when I read this. I didn't realize the second sentence. I have vowed to the Lord of mercy to abstain from conversation, and I will not talk to anyone today. I thought that was Mary saying that. And now I'm led to understand that, or to suspect that this is actually the infant Jesus who says this.
Yeah, that's his idea. Of course. Okay. Your God has created a spring of water underneath you. Verse 25, and you can shake the palm tree, and ripe, fresh dates will fall down for you to eat, which would be great. It would be nice to have those too. Verse 26, so eat and drink and do not worry, or calm down. It's an interesting wordplay here with the eyes regarding this, but yeah, it basically means calm down. And if you see any humans, just in case, and this is the voice telling her, which we figured it might be Jesus from the womb, just say you have made an oath not to talk to anyone today. And my note here is, I don't know how you do that without actually talking to them. You have to tell them, I don't talk today.
Okay, so yeah, okay, I'm following. I understand a little bit better now. So this is like Jesus talking from inside her to tell her to do this, and then tell anyone that talks to her, I promised God I wouldn't talk to anybody today. Whoops, just broke that promise.
Okay, so this is going to be the end of verse 26. She does not talk to any inns. And this goes back to what did God create? And God created insan, which is humans, and the jinn.
Are we talking about tree people?
We're talking about three types of people.
No. Tree people. People that spirits in trees. Trees that walk and talk. No, because you said ent.
End.
Isn't end. Okay, three ends.
You create ints, which is humans, that's us.
Okay. Oh, is that the Arabic word for humans?
Yes.
Okay, gotcha.
The Arabic word for humans is insan, which is stemmed at the forgetful one. Yeah, not a very good name. And then the jinn, which are made of fire, and that's why Iblis didn't like the creation of the inns, because we were made of mud. And he said, well, I'm made of fire, so duh, I'm better. So, yeah, interesting ways of creation, I guess. Next note I have is 1928.
And that is where to go. Sister of Aaron, your father was not an evil man. Your mother was not unchaste. And this is the people who are wondering why is she carrying a child? Well, you've done something terrible.
Yeah, they think she's like a good woman. Where do you get the child from, Mary? How's that happened? So, yeah, calling people with the names of their relatives is not unusual, not even today. So a lot of, even in Arabic culture today, the Abu Abbas, for example, and Ukht Ismail, the sister of Ismail, whatever that is. Ismail might be just a relatively famous guy in the village, right?
Mm-hmm.
And of course, bin Sultan was the son of a certain person, right? And bint somebody else, which is for daughter of whatever. Usually, that's also a reference. If your father is too famous and then you're his daughter, then people might not call you by your first name. They'll call you by the daughter of your father.
And I read somewhere when I was posting this that there's an issue of who Aaron is, that they're referring to
Yes.
the wrong Aaron, or
Yes.
an Aaron out of time.
They are referring to some Aaron guy who happens to be in her family tree. I don't think this is the historic Aaron.
Okay.
That people would, oh, this is the sister of Aaron. No, she is a sister of an Aaron. Yes.
Okay.
So
it doesn't identify who this person is, and it's not.
No. It's just an Aaron who happens to be one of her brothers. Okay. Obviously, families at that time, and families up to like maybe less than 100 years ago, had 26, 28 children.
And 3 of them lived.
And 3 of them lived, truth be said, right? So yeah. If you are in a family like that, and there is nothing to say that Mary wasn't, referencing her by the name of one of her many brothers would not even be odd, right? Yeah, you're the sister of Aaron, that Aaron guy. Probably nothing historically significant, okay? Unless somebody knows better. Where were we? 28, right?
Yes.
1932.
In 32, I think this is important. I've got to give the whole context. Is this her speaking? This is
Jesus. This is Jesus speaking.
Okay, so in 30, we find out, and up 32, 33, this is Jesus as an infant. When the family accosts her and they say, what happened? Where did you get this baby? And so she points to the baby, that the baby is going to answer the question, and then the baby starts talking.
Yes, that's why I didn't reference it, because you got that pat down on the trend. That's exactly what the Quran says. He basically says, no, I am the messenger of God.
I am a servant of God. He has granted me the scripture, made me a prophet, made me blessed wherever I may be. He commanded me to pray, to give alms as long as I live, to cherish my mother. He did not make me domineering or graceless. Peace was on me the day I was born, and will be on me the day I die, the day I am raised to life again. And that's the repeat in the first person that you brought before. Yes. And then, such was Jesus, son of Mary. And this is a statement of truth about which they are in doubt. Well, of course they're in doubt. This is ridiculous.
Quickly make sure it's true. So, yes. 1933 is the one.
I just did a study on how, like development when we're talking. I made a video about the speech and the evolution of speech, and one of the interesting things is like a baby's mouth when they're infants, their the hard palate and everything is the same as an infant ape, and then as they develop, in the first year or so, the hard palate moves backward and the tongue moves backward, and it creates this vocalization channels, which so that a baby at a year old can speak, but an infant cannot. It's just physically not possible. So even if the baby had the brain to do it, which we know they don't, but even if it had the brain to do it, still wouldn't be able to speak. But of course, if snakes and donkeys can talk, then...
and perfect the linguistics of whatever language he spoke.
Yeah, well, why not? Like I said, if snakes and donkeys can talk in this book, then why not a newborn?
Right. I mean, at least it's human. A recent human, a new human. Yeah. So 33. This is first tense thing, and its references back to 1915.
Where there was talk, but then it was talking about John the Baptist.
Yes, in the third person. Right. So the next note is 34.
Such was Jesus, son of Mary. This is a statement of the truth about which they are in doubt.
Yes, and this is like an unusual way of referencing Jesus, I guess, for a lot of people. Does not mention his father at all. Like when you read these verses, what's his father's name?
It's not Joseph, because Joseph doesn't exist in the story.
Right, but Joseph is not in the story. Like here, Joseph is not even mentioned. Like he's not even referenced like him or whatever, right? He's not in the story at all. He's like, it's just Mary and Jesus doing all the things, right? It's just, even when he calls him is Isa ibn Maryam, he's going like, this is Jesus, the son of Mary. And John has got nothing to do with it. Right? So you tee this ball until somebody says, but yeah, well, he's the son of God, and then starts to pile on that slightly later on. It's sometimes precise even today. This kind of naming is not unusual even today, by the way. Also, he references Isa by his mother's first name. And that is usually considered a scorn back then and even today. For those people who are born out of wedlocks or their father is not known, they would call them by the name of their mother's first name.
So are people referring to Jesus as Mary?
No, Jesus, the son of Mary.
Okay.
Right. Like today, we have people who choose to pick their mother's name for their surname, but they pick the mother's surname. They pick the mother's family name. They say, I know a couple of people who do that, as a matter of fact. But to pick or to get given your mother's maiden name as a surname, that usually is a beatdown because your father is unknown. Right? So interesting. I don't see any particular thing about it here, apart from if anybody knows this construct and what it means when somebody is named by his mother's maiden name, that means he was considered a fatherless figure. He was like, no, you are basically a bastard.
Okay.
If that's how you're called. Okay. And in 35, immediately, and God immediately goes that far and then flips the coins, and God would never take a son.
And the whole purpose of this is to deny the divinity of Jesus. The whole purpose of this chapter, it would seem, is to
The
deny
whole purpose of the rest of the chapter from here on is to deny the divinity of Jesus.
Yeah, but the funny thing is that they say that God would not have a son, that God cannot have a son, and that Jesus is not God's son. But God sent his spirit to have sex with Mary, to make her pregnant with what is effectively God's child. There's how do they reconcile that this is not God's child? This was born by God's spirit.
Right. I mean, today, if you took it to court, God will be the father.
Well, then
There
they
would be
defeated
no.
their own
It would be it. Like, no, you're the dad. You take responsibility for that, right? But no, here it completely denies the responsibility. God would never have a son. That's just absolutely garbage.
Who would have expected God to be a deadbeat dad?
Well, there you go. Another title. Maybe you discovered the 100th name of Allah. The deadbeat dad.
Okay.
So that was 35. 36. This is the Quran, Muhammad saying the Christians at this time. Context. 35, 36. I might have missed the number here, but yeah, this is
the 36 is where it says God is my Lord and your
Yeah.
Lord, so serve him.
Yeah.
That is the straight path.
Yeah.
So who is speaking here?
This is Jesus speaking in 36, by the way.
Okay.
No. Sorry. This is Muhammad speaking.
That's
right.
a little confusing because the text doesn't say that.
No, it doesn't. It should have titles. Who's speaking this? So this is something that Muhammad should say to the Christians who are listening to him at this point and saying, okay, this is what your Quran is saying about our prophet.
Yeah,
Right?
and so
he's trying to buy the allegiance and probably the belief of the Christians around him.
And when Muhammad then says that it would not befit God to have a child, and that if God wants something, he says only be, and it is. Except that that's exactly not what God did. God didn't say be, and there was a Jesus.
Right. He had instruments along the way.
God sent his spirit to make the girl pregnant, to gestate a child, to give birth to that child. He didn't just say be, and it is. So Muhammad's wrong here again.
That's not in debate. That's not in debate.
Wouldn't it be fun if we had a believing Muslim to talk about this on
Yeah, it would be.
I sent out so many invitations for all these people, and you're the only one that responds. Yeah. I'm glad that you do. If I was only going to get one, I'm glad that it's you.
But then I'm not a believing Muslim. So
yeah, but it still would have been fun to have somebody justify how can this be, absolutely verbatim when everything we see in it is wrong.
Yeah.
And I think that's why I don't get a believing Muslim, because there's no way to justify this.
You can't defend this. You can't defend this. So he's the God who orders things to be, and then they are, right? You very eloquently put it in your text. And then Muhammad says to the Christians that are sitting around him and listening to this, right? Because what's happening with these chapters that are speaking about certain religions that were around Muhammad in the time, is that Muhammad was trying to sell his religion to them. Right. So he's trying this with different groups. So first he was trying with the infidels of Mecca. Then he was trying with other infidels otherwise. Then he was trying with the Jews, and he's going to try with the Jews again. And then he's trying with the Christians that are around him, around Mecca and nearby villages and towns. So he's trying to sell his religion to those people by making it assimilating their religion to the point. And the part that we read up to this point is the assimilation part. And he's telling him that my God is the same as your God, so worship him. and that's the straight road, the straight way, the straight and narrow, if you like. But the straight and narrow is his way, not Jesus's way. So the straight and narrow is that's how he says to worship him. Right. And he hasn't said most of the things at this point. So he was just building up a theological kind of relationship between the other religions and trying to make it palatable to them. And that's the purpose of these chapters. So when you see these chapters come in, and they will be coming, you need to understand that this is, especially in the initial part, this is where he's trying to pull these religions closer to Islam and tell them that Islam is just like your religion. But then he refuses certain parts of those religions. And obviously the people at that time did not find that palatable for them either. So they don't join him.
Shut
See?
up, dog.
The dog gets it. The dog gets it.
Yeah. I think somebody showed up at the door, and I think.
Oh yeah, that's then well called for.
Yeah. All right. So continue, please.
39.
39, and let's see. That one is, for they are heedless and do not believe. That's just it. And I don't understand why the verses start like this, like in the middle of the sentence. Why would you have a verse start in the middle of the sentence? But so doing 38 too. How sharp of hearing, how sharp of sight they will be when they come to us. Although now they are clearly off course. Warn them, Muhammad, of the day of remorse when the matter will be decided. And then we get to 39. For they are heedless and do not believe. Except that it doesn't matter what Muhammad says to us, because God has already predetermined whether I'm going to believe or not, or whether the believers are going to be believers or whether they're going to be disbelievers. God's already decided that. He's closed the ears of the unbelievers and then will punish us for what he's done to us later.
Yes, he will not punish us for what they have done later, because this chapter is actually abrogated by 9:5. The punishment comes in the here and now, pretty bad shape.
Okay.
So that's the point of the abrogation, that you read it. That's the translation. It would have been a much nicer book without the abrogation, but then it isn't.
No, it's still not nice, because it's still God's decision whether I believe or not. So why am I being punished?
There is still a punishment for it. Like, even if it happens in the afterlife, there is still a punishment for it. And it's still wrong.
All right. Moving on.
Yep. Okay, 39, 46.
46. Okay, so in... So if with 45 in there, Father, I fear that a punishment from the Lord of mercy may afflict you, and that you may become Satan's companion. And this is Abraham talking to his father. And then Abraham's father answered, Abraham, do you reject my gods? I will stone you if you do not stop this. Keep out of my way.
And my snide remark here is, how much history would have changed had he stoned him right there and then?
Well, I like the admission in the Quran that Abraham's father believed in multiple gods, so that there has to be some acknowledgement that polytheism predated monotheism.
Oh yes, it did.
Because a lot of Christians insist that the Bible's like the oldest book, and that was the first religion somehow, even though there's references to this.
Yeah, there was, obviously, and even when you read the story of the calf.
Shut up.
When Moses went up to the mountain to get the first set of commandments, right?
Mm-hmm.
The Jewish people who remained at the bottom of the mountain reverted to worshiping the calf. So that's already a predating text there that says, well, they used to worship a calf. They stopped worshiping the calf. They listened to Moses and Aaron's God thing. Moses went up to the mountain. These guys reverted back to worshiping the calf. So they were worshiping the god before that, they stopped and they gone back to it again. So even in the Bible, this is a reversal. And here, obviously, that we will get to the story, it is also obviously a reversal. So yes, polytheism was available before monotheism. They just whittled down the number of the gods a little bit and tossed them with more and more things. 46, 49.
All right, 49. When he left his people and those they served beside God, we wanted him, Isaac and Jacob, and made them both prophets. So both of Abraham's kids become prophets, even though the Bible is not very friendly toward one of them. And I mean, he doesn't do anything to qualify as being a prophet.
Yes. Now, there is a different take to this story. There might be an out for you and for Ishmael, of course. Okay, so there is an out here for the conundrum of where Ishmael is and where he isn't. And Ishmael is the son of Abraham, fine, via his concubine Hagar, because Hagar was his concubine. And as we all know, if you own somebody, then you can have children with them if they happen to be women. So that would solve some of the problems around the confusion. And yes, Aaron is a different Aaron here than the Aaron that was mentioned before regarding naming of Mary. So, and that's I think quite reasonable to assume because of the time difference. Like Abraham and Abraham's Aaron would have lived centuries before Mary. So she wouldn't be his sister at any ways possible. She lived in a different era in history, as far as I can construe it.
Yeah, that was the way when I read the article that said that it was supposed to be that Aaron, and that they thought the article was saying that this was a huge flaw with the Quran, that they put these people so far out of time. And my initial impression was that no, that was just some guy named Aaron. It wasn't that Aaron.
Yeah, and you were correct. Yeah. That is just Mary's brother at her time, and Aaron was Abraham's son 300, 400, 500 years earlier.
Right.
So it must have been a popular name, like for all intents and purposes. But you get their sons, I know. But at the level of what can be known, this is just as good as an explanation as the other one.
Yeah.
Hagar, however, is quite a figure in Islam, and some of the rituals performed during the Hajj pilgrimage are directly attributed to her. There are references in the Quran for Hagar. We will find them later on because we haven't found them yet. And some of the deeds she did when she was in Mecca, which is described very interestingly in that section of the Quran, in that chapter. She actually walked between two places and then ran in the middle of the section and then walked again. And Muslims do that during the Hajj between the Safa and the Marwa. They walk a part of the distance, they run another part, and they then walk another part there. So a lot of the stuff that's being done in the Hajj, I can relate it to these different actions. Okay.
Okay.
All right. So next one is 1956-57.
All right, and that is mentioned too in the Quran, the story of Idris. He was a man of truth, a prophet. We raised him to a high position.
Yes. And that caused an innumerable number of confusions around Idris. Some people consider him one of those prophets of God that did not die but was elevated to heaven alongside Jesus. And
so is Idris the same as the biblical Enoch? Because the articles I was reading on this, or the references, I can't remember what it was that I was reading, and it was associated with. I mean, maybe it was another translation that was trying to give an explanation that said that this was a conglomeration of other gods. That is, this was Hermes and Thoth.
Nobody is the wiser, let me tell you the truth. Okay, Idris is a very interesting and intriguing figure in ancient lore. I posted the Wikipedia page just for a quick reference. All the things you talked about are in the Wikipedia page as well. Idris is an interesting figure. Little mention of him, very little mention of him in the Quran, but is considered one of the few people who did not die. Look at chapter 57.
Oh, I'm looking forward to that one.
Or look at, 57, 56. وَرَفَعْنَاهُ مَكَانًا عَلِيًّا. This is, and we lifted him up to a high place, which is a correct translation, but what does it actually mean? There are literally 2 verses about Idris here, and the Quran like to mention him that briefly every time it comes up. So Idris is, his name means the studious one. So his association with knowledge is not completely foreign to the idea.
Okay.
Also, we'll see that he meets Muhammad. So when we read about in the chapter of Isra al-Mi'raj, where Muhammad takes the beast and rides it from Mecca to Jerusalem, and then up the heaven and negotiates the terms of the prayer with God.
And which chapter is that in?
That is Surah al-Isra wal-Mi'raj. I can check it for you. But it's still coming.
Okay.
I don't know. I don't want to waste the time on that.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to that one too.
Yeah, it's an interesting surah. It's batshit. It's absolutely batshit.
Because I was told
But
that
he
the reference.
Idris. He meets Idris along the way.
Okay.
In the heavens, on the 4th heaven or somewhere, and he talks to him. So he's not dead. He talks to him because Muhammad can't talk to the dead, remember? You have to be alive to talk to Muhammad.
Okay.
So he meets Idris on his way up, riding the Buraq to heaven to negotiate the terms of the prayer with Allah, who asked for 50 prayers a day. So Muhammad is a pretty good haggler, by the way. Chronologically, this is the first mention of Idris in the Quran. And yes, Enoch is a widely accepted but equally unsupported associated. It's just no way to put these 2 together.
Okay. No, I realized that there was the reference that you mentioned from like a Wikipedia article.
Yeah.
Maybe that's where I got that. I don't remember. I don't remember what I was reading.
Right.
But is there anything more reliable that talks about Thoth or what was that other Hermes, or who this Idris might be, or does it matter?
I don't think it matters that much.
Okay.
He's one of those interesting high lore value figures in ancient history, which we don't really know what the heck is going on here. He's an interesting figure.
And why would God tell Muhammad to mention Idris, and that's all he does, is just give the name, give none of the story at all?
To lure in the people who believe that Idris was something special.
Okay.
Enoch. Okay, so he's trying to pull in other religions to Islam. This is the stage when he's trying to do that. He's pulling them in. He's talking to their leaders. He's making Islam palatable and compatible with their religion.
Okay.
So they don't refuse him, so they accept him, and then the other stuff happens. Okay?
Okay.
So that's the purpose behind these kind of references, which don't say much, but are thrown in for good measure and are confusing for everybody, because what's Idris got to do with anything that we talked about in this chapter?
That's why I mentioned. That's why I
Nothing.
asked about it.
Nothing. He's just a disjointed. And that Idris guy, and he's in a high place. And that's all I can say right now because I'm
and
moving
that
on.
tells us nothing.
No, not really.
So much of the Quran is written from the perspective of okay, people know these stories. And if it was written by God, you would expect, okay, God's going to know that people are going to go hold to the Quran, and they're not going to know these stories.
Apparently, God didn't know.
Yeah.
I mean, what else explanation do you have? Either he didn't know, or he deliberately wanted to confuse people with it.
Yeah, and so I understand that nobody even knows how many hadiths there are.
No, and that's one of the main reasons why I do not accept hadith in debates with Muslims, because you can always do a standard argument against any hadith anytime, and you just say this is not as authentic as mine. Discussion is over.
Yeah, and when I say that nobody knows how many there are, it's because there are tens of thousands at least.
Yeah, Muhammad could not have said all of that stuff. His mouth would have worn out. There's no way he said all that stuff. Listen, 20 years of, being a messenger of God, 27 years of being a messenger of God. Do you think he could have spoken all those volumes of words? I mean, if you recorded his speeches with his grocer, you still wouldn't have the amount.
And you wouldn't have the uncertain amount either. I mean, we would have a finite amount. We would know the number of hadiths.
Yeah, but we don't.
Right.
It's a
maybe if they just written the Quran, maybe the Quran could be just a little bit bigger, a little bit thick, because it's not a very big book, really. But it's certainly unclear. You can never tell who's talking or what they're talking about.
Yeah,
this is just really badly written, and I don't think that it's any better in the Arabic, because you're saying that nobody knows. Nobody knows what this means. Nobody knows why there's letters there. Nobody knows who's talking in this passage.
Yes.
Even in Arabic, nobody knows. So it's
we know a little bit more in Arabic than that. And granted, a set of disjointed letter, nobody knows. The correct answer is nobody knows.
But you can't tell in Arabic, is that Jesus? Is Jesus the voice from below her that we just went over, for example? I mean, that's not clear in Arabic, is it?
That's not clear. That's not clear. But the fact that the voice is coming from where Jesus would be coming from in a matter of minutes gives you the very strong illusion that this is Jesus talking from inside the womb.
And then you're just supposed to know that suddenly now this is Muhammad talking and not Jesus. But it doesn't. But the book doesn't say, because it's
the linguistics help me out on this.
Okay.
So I look at the way the sentences are constructed, and then I say, oh no, this is actually attributed to somebody else, not Jesus. Right.
Okay.
I mean, you need to have to do the grammar to understand that this was Muhammad talking. This is Muhammad saying to the Christians that are sitting around him at that setting and having coffee, probably, or maybe tea. Okay, so 50. Where are we? Oh yeah, Idris. We're done with Idris. 58.
58. These are the prophets of God. Now, these were the prophets of God, blessed from the seed of Adam, of those we carried in the ark with Noah, from the seed of Abraham and Israel, and those we guided and chose. Again, implying that everybody came from Noah. Again, implying that that was a global flood, because
Noah is basically slated as the second Adam.
But there are people who insist that the Quran does not talk about a global flood. It just implies it over and over again.
That's the beauty of apologetics. They sell you any story that works as long as you don't dig enough into it.
Yeah.
Because if you dug enough into it and you read these details, you would say, well, there is no way that was not a global extinction there. There is no way that was not a global extinction. If anything that happened after that, anyone who was born after that was directly related to the seed of Noah and the people who were with him on the boat, then that means nobody else had children or nobody else survived.
Yeah.
And you get to make the pick right there, because swimming is kind of difficult, let me tell you, especially in rough waters. So 58, important bloodline. It was simply a local flood, but poor apologetics. Yes, this does not imply that. The Gardens of Eden, 61.
Okay, 61. And again, this is part of a pre-existing sentence from the further verse. They will not be wronged in the least, and but those who repent, who believe, who do righteous deeds will enter paradise. They will not be wronged in the least. They will enter the gardens of lasting bliss promised by the Lord of mercy to his servants. It is not yet seen, but truly his promise will be fulfilled.
The gardens of heaven is Eden. The gardens of Eden, specifically. It's a geographic reference. Eden is in Yemen. Yemen is known to have built some very interesting Yemeni culture prior to Islam is known to have built some interesting irrigation systems. And they had gardens on top of the mountains with water being pumped up to them from dams. And apparently that is mentioned in the Quran, some other places. We'll find that later. But it is also, I don't think we actually hit that mention yet.
You're saying that it's implying here that people are going to go to heaven, and you're saying that heaven in this case is not heaven, it's Eden. And so when people die, they go to Yemen?
No.
Okay, I'm confused.
This heaven is named after the Gardens of Eden.
Okay.
Heaven and hell have names. One of the names of hell, one of the hells that are available for us is Jahannam, which happens to be the same name of the valley that's right next to Jerusalem, where they used to stone people and throw the garbage out and burn it. And that's a fact. You can, if you go to Jerusalem, you can visit the valley of Jahannam. They don't burn garbage there because recycling and other stuff. And hopefully they don't stone people there anymore. But it's still there. So 67.
67. All right. And that is, and again, part of a sentence. So going to 66, man says, what? Once I am dead, I will be brought back to life. But does man not remember that we created him when he was nothing before? Well, of course we wouldn't remember that.
We wouldn't. But were we ever nothing? Remember, the first creation was made from mud, which is a thing, which is definitely a thing. And according to our friend Nadir, we were created from seminal fluid only, big quantities of it, apparently. So it's not nothing. God does not seem to create humans from nothing, never. Yet he says, from nothing. That has to make up your mind sometimes.
Yeah.
A scientific error in the Quran, again, because humans are not created from nothing anyways. So I figured just to note that. 68 to 70.
68 to 70. Okay, by your Lord, prophet, we shall gather them and the devils together and set them on their knees around hell. We shall seize out of each group those who were most disobedient toward the Lord of mercy. We know best who most deserves to burn in hell. But every single one of you will approach it, a decree from your Lord which must be fulfilled. We shall have the devout and leave the evildoers there on their knees. And when our revelations are recited to them in all their clarity, all that the disbelievers say to the believers is, which side is better situated? Which side has the better following? And how far did you want me to go?
No, just 68 to 70.
Oh, 70. Okay, I'm sorry.
Yeah, that's okay. So the interesting take here is he is putting the devils and the unbelievers in hell together. We learn two things from these three verses. One, the devils and the bad angels, right, have knees. That's very important. You can kick them in the knee. The other thing is, what kind of a punishment is it to put a devil or an angel in fire when they are made of fire? That's only punishment for us.
Maybe it's job placement. They're there to torture us.
No, they're there in hell for their bad deeds, which they did not have the free will to commit, by the way. So the devils are even in a worse place in terms of judgment, because they couldn't do otherwise. Right? They literally couldn't do otherwise. Neither could we, but never mind that. We have an ongoing argument and debate whether we humans have free will or not. But they are made of fire, dude.
Yeah.
And you put them in fire, they're just going to enjoy the thing. It's just like I'm jumping into, a swimming pool. I'm made mostly of water, so I enjoy swimming in the pool. Big deal. It's not a punishment. Anyways, next one, 75.
75. Say, prophet, the Lord of mercy lengthens the lives of the misguided until, when they are confronted with what they have been warned about, either the punishment in this life or the hour of judgment, they realize who is worse situated and who has the weakest forces.
Yes, this one is abrogated by 9.5, and the punishment is definitely in this life.
Okay.
So you don't wait until the judgment day. You don't let them go. You punish them here in this life if they don't listen. 1975. Okay.
Yep.
1984.
There is no need for you to be impatient concerning them. We are counting down their allotted time.
Yeah, there is a need for you to be impatient. As a matter of fact, 84 is also abrogated. We are counting down their allotted time, abrogated by 9.5. But when the forbidden months have passed, then fight and slay the pagans wherever you find them, and seize them, besiege, beleaguer them, and lie in wait for them. Every strangle of war. But if they repent, then all is forgiven. So you don't wait for them. It's not a long wait there. 88 and 89.
The disbelievers say, the Lord of mercy has offspring. How terrible is this thing you assert? It almost causes the heavens to be torn apart and the earth to be split asunder, the mountains to crumble to pieces, that they attribute offspring to the Lord of mercy. It must not befit the Lord of mercy to have offspring. Well, then he shouldn't have sent his spirit to go knock up this. Never mind.
Christians are in trouble. I'm sorry. You got it wrong. But it's such a big deal that the heavens would crumble from claiming a son to God. The heavens would crack up and crumble. Oh. So, Trinitarian Christians are definitely in the trouble here. If you know any Unitarian Christians who think Jesus is a human and a prophet of God, there are a few of them. Yeah, they're kind of getting away with it. But yeah, this is one of the interesting twists of this otherwise relatively gentle chapter.
Okay.
and we're done with it.
All right. I still don't understand why. I mean, if the thing is meant to remove the idea of God having a son, why did he use a sexual act? Why did he send his spirit so that it now is his son? And there's no argument out of that.
And he could have called him to be, and he'd be. He would just be,
Yeah.
hey, I'm Jesus.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I'm an adult Jesus, and I'm ready to go and preach the message of God, and it would have been no problem for God to do it. The other thing that he could have done, and people actually bring it up in debate, is what if God just made Mary pregnant, like said she's pregnant and then she's pregnant, right? He just said it, and she was then, and then she bore him and everything else. What's the need of a God for sending a spirit? And the apologists jump into this and say, well, Mary would have been completely frazzled out of her brain case because she's suddenly developing a big pregnant belly and she didn't even meet a guy. And God didn't want that to happen.
Yeah,
that's
so
the apologetics.
He could have sent a spirit to say, "Hey, you're pregnant now," and God did it. But God's not the Father, just to be clear, right? Because there was no sex with God's spirit.
Nope.
But that's not what he did. Instead, hi, I'm literally God's gift to you, and I'm here to make you pregnant. And since I'm in a sense an aspect of God, that means that it's not the son of an angel; it's the son of God.
And looking good while doing it.
Yeah. Okay. It's going to be interesting when we're done with this. When I'm done with this, with the entire Quran, I'm going to take all of these posts and I'm going to revise them all according to these discussions that we have. You know, whenever I get something wrong, whenever there's because you do occasionally point out things that I didn't accurately understand, and so I will do all of these corrections. I'm going to put them in a book, and that might be my second book, or it might be my third, because I'm working on something else too. But I'm looking forward to doing that. Bogey, thank you very much once again. And I'm going to be away for a while. So I'm trying to figure out when we're going to do another one of these Quran lessons, because it's going to be at least a month before I get to it, because I'll be in Africa for a little over 2 weeks, and then I'll be a week in the Caribbean for the Free Thought cruise, where my wife and I are both speaking, and I'm really, really busy. So I think late March we will probably do this again, and it shouldn't be too far off of our normal schedule. I just don't know when I'll be able to piece that all that together. So thank you very much, and talk again. Thank you, sir.
Yeah. Cheers.